Fridays. The only day of the week that I won't share content as far as Monday through Friday is the first Monday after the first Sunday. I just can't do it because it's oh my goodness, it's incredible, but man, it's exhausting, right? So the Monday after ex-pastor call-in show, I typically take a break from content. And that's honestly just until we can get to the place where we have a solid team and my time isn't so dependent on other things. Then I can actually just mass produce content, so I can have all my stuff come in on a Monday, knock everything out for the week, and then focus on community stuff for the rest of the week. So that makes it a lot easier. It's having to squeeze this in on top of, 10-hour work days, So, but if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this community, content, or channel in any way that makes sense for you. And of course, check out our merch and check out our books. I just released a new book, or it's in pre-release right now. It officially releases it officially releases the day after Thanksgiving on November the 29th. I believe that's that date. So be on the lookout, but it is available for pre-order and pre-release now on Amazon in both paperback and digital copy. No, not paperback. I don't know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Both paperback and ebook. All right, so let's jump into this conversation. This is another rounding episode of Black Nonbelievers, and staying true to my commitment, I am definitely still including Black Nonbelievers, the organization support information in here, though we're no longer working from the journal. So if you're curious about the organization, Black Nonbelievers, and you're looking for a way to support or looking for a way to get involved, the information is below in the description. Check it out and see if you want to support. All right, so let's talk about this. This is a different video. Like, I don't even have a title for this one in my notes. Let me see what I originally put this as. I wish I could share the screen right now, but I don't typically do that in these. But if I would have, then you could see kind of like I have, what is this? 33 pages of notes where I just randomly jot stuff during the week that say, oh, this could be a cool content idea. And so this one was do a video on fringe beliefs in the Black community. And so that's what we're talking about, fringe beliefs in the Black community. And so I'm going to kind of do a comprehensive overview of various groups that focus on the spiritual, cultural, and social empowerment of Black people. These groups often combine elements of religion, nationalism, and cultural identity to address issues affecting the African diaspora. Or diaspora. Why did I say it that way? Diaspora. It's diaspora. Okay. So the first group is probably one that this group shouldn't be a stranger. Most of you should know about this group. And honestly, when I was deconverting, if there was any group that had a shot of getting me, it was this one. But when I say a shot, I mean chances were slim to none. But the Nation of Islam. All right. So the Nation of Islam is a religious and socio-political organization founded in 1930 in Detroit, Michigan by Elijah Muhammad? No. By Wallace D. Fard Muhammad, who mysteriously disappeared in 1934. It is still a mystery. And when he disappeared, then Elijah Muhammad became the leader. Expanding the organization's reach. The NOI is currently led by Louis Farrakhan, who revived the organization in 1977 after a period of decline. And just to be clear about revive the organization, Farrakhan started a new organization. Elijah Muhammad did not choose Farrakhan to lead the Nation of Islam. He chose his son. And his son just wasn't very good. But to be honest, Elijah wasn't very good either. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about Elijah's morality. And I know people in the NOI are going to be pissed at me, but I don't give a fuck. So I'm not just talking about Elijah's morality. The Nation of Islam had it was either less than 200 or less than 100 people prior to Malcolm X. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Just wanted to point that out. After Malcolm X is when the Nation of Islam grew from just being a little collective group, almost like a Bible study, to becoming an actual organization. You know what I'm saying? Which is why, like that's, and this is why I say the chances were slim to none, because Malcolm X is one of my heroes. And I paid very close attention to the historical records of how he was treated by this organization, but I also paid very close attention to the historical records of how he masterminded this organization. But yes, Wallace D. Fard Muhammad started the organization. He disappeared. There were rumors that Elijah killed him. Nobody knows. Elijah took over the position in 1934, and the organization didn't become anything significant until Malcolm X got out of prison. Yep. It was Malcolm Little at that time, changed to Malcolm X, then El Hajj Malik Shabazz. I may be saying that wrong because it's been a while. But the Prince. Yes. Oh, because he has a Nigerian name too. Man, I cannot remember it. Somebody knows Malcolm X's Nigerian name, and if you know it, drop it in the chat. All right, so let's talk about this. So Farrakhan, yes, he did revive the organization in 1977, and has since then been the paramount leader of the Nation of Islam. Other than Malcolm X, though, there was also Khalil Muhammad, who was Khalil Muhammad. I think that's right. Yeah. Khalid. It's Khalid. I can't get it right now. I should have looked this up before I came. But after Malcolm was assassinated, he kind of took he kind of rose to prominence in the Nation of Islam, and then went through the exact same thing that Malcolm went through with the Nation of Islam. Now he was funny. Like, he was, during my Black nationalist days, which I still kind of lean there, and we'll talk about that a little bit in this video. But during my Black nationalist days, I loved that brother because he was hilarious. I also loved him, and this is a major part of what was appealing to me to Black nationalist communities, is that they were willing to criticize Black leadership in areas that it had been considered too sacred to criticize. And so, like, people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton got slaughtered by these groups, and even Spike Lee kind of pays homage to that a little bit in the Malcolm X movie. If you watch the street preachers out there, there's like this real big greasy looking one with like a perm. That's a shot at Al Sharpton. You know what I'm saying? But okay, so back to the NOI. So a few things about their beliefs: monotheism with unique interpretations. While professing belief in one God, Allah, the NOI teaches that God appeared on earth in the person of Wallace D. Fard Muhammad. Well, see, that's not 100% accurate. They used to teach that, and then he disappeared, and so then the message changed to Elijah. So there are many people who do believe that Elijah Muhammad was the God that appeared on earth. And of course, Elijah himself believed that he was the last prophet. That's why he had to impregnate as many people as he could. And damn, he even failed at that. Yikes. Oh man, Nation of Islam folk are gonna be mad at me. No apologies. All right, so they also, obviously, what attracted me, the Black nationalism, emphasizes the empowerment and upliftment of Black people advocating for economic self-sufficiency and social justice. And so for those of you who don't know what Black nationalism is, that's probably the best way to say it right there. It is a political movement that exists for the self-sufficiency, self-determination, and self-government of Black folk in the United States, or on the North American continent. So, but that's what that is. They also believe in the supremacy of the original people, and You're going to see that in a lot of these groups that we're going to talk about today. But they believe that black people are the original humans and that white people were created through genetic experiments by a scientist named Yakub. All right. So, yeah. Like but they like they don't even stop there. It's not just a a scientist named Yakub. It's a big-headed scientist named Yakub for them. You know, it's very interesting. Like they have a lot of detail about this, and ultimately they take it from the biblical story of Jacob, and they use these words to kind of assert that they have a better understanding. But they do have some awesome words. Like they use the word technology a lot, and that's what they say white folks do, and they ain't wrong. Now, and that's the thing about the Nation of Islam. From my perspective, well, let me get through these other ones and then I'll come back. Advocates for the establishment of a separate territory or state for Black Americans. That's not a new thought. It's been in the conversations for a very long time. Because you've had the civil rights movement stuffed down your throat, you think that was the only thing that Black folk wanted, and you think that was the only movement that Black folk supported. And by far and large, Black folk did not support that movement. Oh, that's a whole nother situation. There's a whole lot of history that's been forced down your throat that is absolutely inaccurate. Absolutely inaccurate. You know, at worst, it's inaccurate. At best, it's incomplete. You know, so but and moral code promotes strict moral behavior, including abstinence from alcohol, drugs, and premarital sex, except for Elijah Muhammad. Okay, couldn't resist. Um, which Malcolm did align with all of these things very well. You know, he was a shining star, man. Just you know, instead of if you don't know much about Malcolm X, instead of just watching his speeches at the temples, go watch some of his speeches at Oxford. You know what I'm saying? Just letting you know. But one thing that I've kind of always figured about the Nation of Islam, that I know other people are going to wildly disagree with me about, but the 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 people in the Nation of Islam, they're all atheists. They're just atheists with superstitious tendencies. They don't actually believe in a God. Honestly, what it seems most likely is that the people in the Nation of Islam understood that for a long time religion was the only language that Black folk in their communities would listen to. So they crafted a religious language that actually has very little to do with religious life whatsoever. The majority message of the Nation of Islam is economic. It's socioeconomics, not political, which is what got Malcolm in trouble and Khalid. Yep, that's right. Now that's what they don't want to go political, which is ultimately was my kind of biggest issue with. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's my biggest issue with Nation of Islam. When I was definitely out there, you know, doing my stuff, trying to find a way to make the world a better place for Black folk. Um, I I have to judge things by the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, you've been here since 1934. What the fuck is taking you so long to make a difference? That's just me now. That's just me. You know, like, damn, man. You've been here since 1934 as an organization. What's taking you so long to make a difference? You know, but that's my same critique of the church. But no, they're basically atheists with superstitious tendencies that use this religious language to get cultural attention and for dramatic effect, and that's what a lot of them are really good at. I mean, whether you Elijah wasn't so good at it, but when you look and honestly, Farrakhan is from the lineage of Malcolm, not Elijah, and I think people kind of understand that. Even though Farrakhan played a hand in what happened to Malcolm. There ain't no way around that. You know what I'm saying? But Farrakhan is in the lineage of Malcolm, and that is the lineage of charisma. Elijah Muhammad was not very charismatic. You know what I'm saying? But Malcolm was, Khalid was, Farrakhan was. These people shared, a lineage. Man, I didn't think I was going to talk about the Nation of Islam that long, but I did because, well, I was fascinatingly disappointed by the Nation of Islam because, man, they talk a big talk, and oh my goodness, they talk that talk so well, but at the end of the day, they don't do shit. And then anytime someone within the Nation of Islam rises up and actually start organizing for them to do the things that they claim that they're here to do, that person always gets assassinated. So that kind of tells me everything I need to know about the NOI. I get it, like the hip hop rappers and shit like that really promote these folk, but attention, black people. Preachers are not the only paramours of misinformation in the black community, as you're going to find out as we continue this list. Let's roll. Hebrew Israelites is our next group. By the way, have you ever wondered how many of our young folk actually became Hebrew Israelites just because they thought Kendrick Lamar was? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's an issue, man. Like, we can't keep overlooking that shit. Okay, dear black atheists, this is what pissed me the fuck off about y'all. You got all of this vitriol. You got all of this smoke for the church, but you ain't got shit to say about hip hop? Bro, get the fuck out of here, man. There's been more superstitious peddled through hip hop than almost any other institution, as you're going to see as we make it through this list. Nah, man, like, fly right. Like, no. I want to get the language right. This is why from day damn one, I've been clear. My problem isn't religion. My problem is superstition. The reason I am clear that way, because I noticed that some of you biased motherfuckers seem to only have a problem with religion, but don't have a problem with any other thing that's spouting the same fucking superstition. Fuck out of here. No. I'm coming for all of it. I'm coming for all of it. That we might be better on the other side. Hebrew Israelites. All right. Also known as the Black Hebrew Israelites, are groups of African Americans. Don't you call them that. If you call almost any of these groups African. Yeah, because the nation of it. Oh, that was because I am a Pan-Africanist. I don't know if y'all know that about me, but I'm a Pan-Africanist. So that was one of the biggest reasons that Nation of Islam could not have gotten me. Like, they were, man, they could have been so close if there was a close and slim to none, right? But Farrakhan himself has said some very derogatory things about black folk. He says some, like, and when I say derogatory, I mean, like, Farrakhan, and I think the clip is likely still on YouTube. He said the reason why our eyebrows are slick like this is because that's the blessed hair, but our kinky hair is the cursed hair. This is what Farrakhan said. Like, yikes. But no, the Nation of Islam, just like many of these other groups, were highly anti-African for a very long time. It's just in recent years that Farrakhan has sort of changed his tone on Africans. And see, like, I am a humanist because I started as a Pan-Africanist. That was my evolution to humanism. Is that I realized that as a black man, it didn't mean no good. And I get there are some of you who are like ADOS, and I'm not mad at you. I'm just not you, right? I'm not you. I can't be concerned for black people in this country and not be concerned for black folks in other countries. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying I'm me. And so please stop speaking for me. You know what I'm saying? But so as a Pan-Africanist, I was concerned about black folk in Mexico, black folk in Canada, black folk in South America, black folk in all of the African countries, black folk in Australia, which there's some stories there, black folk in the Philippines, which there are some stories there, Black folk in India, which there are some fucking stories there. You know, so my concern for a global worldview came from getting a more global view of myself. And then the more that I journeyed in Pan-Africanism, I realized that because my wife and I ran a school. You've heard us talk about it. It was called Chancellor Woodson Chancellor Woodson, and it was K through continuing because we offered coursework for K through 12 people and people who needed to either get their high school diploma or needed specialty courses. Because my goal, like I'm ambitious. I don't know if y'all have noticed that about me, but my goal was definitely to build it out to a university of providing culturally effective and appropriate information for Pan-African people, so they can have some sense of pride in themselves. But then while I was doing that work, and I lived where I lived in Dothan at the time, one side of me we had a Hispanic family, and the other side of me we had a white family that lived, and my kids played with their kids and stuff, and I'm like, well, you know what, they deserve that too. Like and y'all know my opinions about the public education system. The public education system isn't just failing Black kids. It's not just failing to consider the culture of Black kids. The commercialization that exists in public education isn't just overlooking the culture of Black kids. That was my realization. And that if I want my Black kids to be able to have pride in themselves in this world without causing harm, then they needed to be in a world where other people were able to do the same thing. And that's when I realized, like, damn, D, you're not just a Pan-Africanist, you're a humanist. And so I tell people I lean towards Black nationalist tendencies, but that's only if we're not going towards globalism. I'd prefer globalism. That's my preference. That we're one global society. But if that's not where we're going, please stop making my people be like the last on the list just because that's most comfortable for you. No, that's bullshit. Is if Israel can get a country, Black people can too. All right. Speaking of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites. You see how I brought that thing back around? All right. So there are groups of African Americans, again, please don't call them that. They will cuss you the fuck out, who believe they are descendants of the ancient Israelites. The movement emerged in the late 19th and 20th centuries. It's pretty late to the game, right? They assert that African Americans are the true descendants of the biblical Israelites. This is going to be a theme. They emphasize adherence to the laws and commandments of the Old Testament. Their beliefs vary among the different groups, with some accepting the New Testament and Jesus, often referred to by Hebrew names like Yahshua, because for whatever reason, in their version of Hebrew, they substitute the A for the E. It's very interesting. And they do not typically identify with mainstream Jewish communities and may view them as imposters. And some groups believe in an impending divine judgment and the restoration of Israelites, of the Hebrew Israelites to their rightful place. Now, a very interesting thing about the Hebrew Israelites, they are a fringe group, like 100% fringe. Most of them, I don't want to say most of them are incredibly weird. I'm not going to do that because I've met some decent Hebrew Israelites. Like I had a client. Well, she was married to a Hebrew Israelite. I don't know if she still is one, but I had a client who was a Hebrew Israelite at the time, and she was an excellent mother. And she was teaching her kids the Hebrew stuff. I was doing her graphic design work for her, making her cards and things like that. But yeah, she was an educator and things like that, so she was pretty cool. But the other ones, they like look like WWF folk, and I said F on purpose because this is like back in the day when it was Macho Man Randy Savage. They be having those type of costumes on. It'd be like Macho Man Randy Savage and Show Enough. Like it'd be like a damn dance battle. Like I don't know what the fuck be going on with them. I'm like, how are you a grown fucking man out here dressed like this on purpose? Like, bruh. And I was gonna say it's hot, but they're primarily in northern places, so maybe it's not that hot. But no, Hebrew Israelites, they don't. I want to respect them, but they don't get much respect from me. Like I don't like pseudo intelligence. I don't care how fun the costume is. Like, and I damn sure don't like superstition. Um, And the Hebrew Israelites are like, man, just yikes. But quite a few people become this. Again, I go back to, I think it was did Kendrick Lamar do the Hebrew Israelite or Moorish? He may have done Moorish. But and we're going to talk about the Moorish too. But this idea that what these things typically kind of cater to is this idea that you lost your identity, you really don't know who you are, and white folks took that from you. And then not only that white folks take that from you, white folks are pretending to be your real identity. And so those white folks who are saying they're Jews, they're not real Jews. You're the real Jews. But do you see the Stockholm syndrome of this? You know what I'm saying? Like you are taking a book that honestly is not reflective of African culture, Black culture, and you're making yourself into that book only because you believe Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are important. And they're fucking not. Like, grow the fuck up. Stop that. Like, I mean, they're important to the Jewish folk. I'm not going to disrespect their ancestors. I don't disrespect nobody's ancestors unless we get in the ring together. Then, no holds barred. It is what it is. But this is one of those groups that quite a few people, when they leave Christianity, that they end up finding themselves a part of. Now, thankfully, a good amount of us don't stay, but enough of us do stay where it is alarming. This Hebrew Israelites, and there's several offshoots of them, they are highly problematic. There's the again, just the idea of, where was it at? I knew I had it in my notes, because they have that type of idea, that Black supremacy type of idea. And notice I've often unapologetically described myself as a Black nationalist. I've never been a Black supremacist. Supremacy, period, is superstitious to me. For anybody to think they're supreme in anything, that word supreme, unless we're talking about pizza, is superstitious. So I don't. That was one of the reasons, and I do talk about that a little bit in my my new book, Black Nonbelievers Next Door. Is that, oh yeah, that's the name of this episode too, Black Nonbelievers Next Door. Okay, sorry, but I do talk about that a little bit in my new book, and I'm probably going to write a whole book just about that nuance, because I did navigate through quite a few Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist organizations, and one of the things that immediately turned me off was this idea of supremacy. And it's like, I'm not interested in supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Quite honestly, I'm not even interested in equality. Oh, I know. That's going to bother you a little bit. I know, but hear me out. What I mean is, I don't need you to see me as equal. Fuck you. Right? What I need is independence, bitch. I don't need your platitudes. I don't need your fucking holidays. I need independence. I need space. That's what my people have not had since coming in contact with you motherfuckers. It's space. We need the right to determine what laws we want. We need the right to determine what type of government we want. Anything other than that is you choosing the world that we live in. Just wanted to throw that out there. Man, this got deep. This got deep quick. All right. Let's roll. All right. So Hebrew Israelites, you already know, they get a lot of play in hip hop music. They do. Nation of Islam gets a lot of play in hip hop music, even from some of my favorite artists. You'll never be able to guess who those artists are. Actually, you may. Because many of you have heard me rap, so you might know who some of my influences are. I don't know. You've not heard enough of my raps, though. Like, yeesh. All right. The 5%ers. This was one of the groups that I was never going to be a part of. Nope. And I'm sorry. And this I might lose some subscribers off of this one, But I've always thought the 5%er nation, the nations of gods and earths, were goofy as fuck. And maybe that's my Christian bias, right? Because when I was a Christian, it was easy to spot superstition and other shit, you know. And so and I got introduced to 5%er shit bullshit when I was younger, and I was just like, oh nah, I'm good. I'm good. But it was founded in 1964 in Harlem, New York City by Clarence 13, born Clarence Edward Smith, a former member of the Nation of Islam. See that? See how that works? The group considers itself a cultural movement rather than a religion. Their beliefs, though, and this is why I put them in this list, is supreme. They have a belief about supreme mathematics and alphabet, which is basically numerology. All right, that's what this is. This is numerology. Utilizes a system where numbers and letters have specific meanings to interpret the universe in daily life. They teach that the black man is God, referred to as Allah, and the black woman is the earth. Now, if you rewind this video back, you'll remember that I said that the Nation of Islam are basically atheists with superstitious tendencies. You will find that to be the case as you explore all of their offshoot groups. The majority of their offshoot groups have completely moved themselves from the idea of an out external God, and godhood is something that is 100% human. But that is also pretty much the way that it gets taught in the Nation of Islam. That's why I say they're kind of atheists. They just still use the religious language. Now, many of the adherents may not feel like they're atheists, but they are. Okay, sorry. And the black woman is the earth. That's so sweet. That reminds me of what's the movie? Couples Retreat, where oh boy, they're doing a little stare off thing, and he tells his wife, he says, "You look like the earth," and then the other guy's like, "What did you say to her?" Because that's not a compliment. You look earthy, fertile. They also have the 85-10 to 5% paradigm. 85% are the unenlightened masses, 10% of those who know the truth but use it to oppress others, and 5% are the enlightened who teach truth to the masses. The poor righteous teaches. You know what I'm saying? Emphasize the importance of self-knowledge and personal transformation. Now, I've always loved the language of the 5%ers. Love the language. It's highly poetic. They sound like they know what they're talking about, but nothing they say has any utility in the real world, and that's what was disappointing. You know, their idea of teaching truth to the masses is supreme mathematics and alphabet. They're still attached to superstitions that the majority of the world, including Christians, separated from. You know, so it's almost like they saw the superstition of Christians and said, "Hold my beer." You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sorry. Again, I know a lot of you got mad respect for 5%ers. And I do. I got mad respect for some of the people. I do not have respect for these beliefs, though. Nor do I have respect for the false knowledge that these beliefs have propagated throughout the community. Because, like, instead of learning supreme mathematics, how about learn some real mathematics? Because we need more engineers. We need more contractors. We need more architects. We need more scientists. We need more doctors. We need that shit. We need that shit. Just honestly. I'm not saying we don't, that any other careers aren't valuable. I'd never say such a thing. But we need to be very realistic about the deficits that exist in our community. Because, I'm about to piss some people off. I am not an advocate of begging other people to fix problems that we're not willing to organize around and address ourselves. And quite honestly, if somebody else has to fix your fucking problem, they own you. You got to learn that shit, man. See, that's my black nationalism. Okay, I'm back. I've always been an advocate. This is why I love Malcolm X. Malcolm X's thing was solve your own problems. That's what every nation has to do. And it was Kwame Nkrumah who rightly recognized that Africans in America are a nation within a nation. And they need to start acting like that. Now, honestly, I'm on the fence, right? And I told you why I'm on the fence. If we're moving towards globalism, that's my preference. But if we're not, if everybody else is going to keep their borders and their barriers, then maybe it's time that Africans in America get some barriers and borders of their own. I'm just saying. I know y'all ain't gonna like that, but I honestly don't give a fuck. I don't need your permission. I don't need your permission to think how I think. And you don't need my permission to think how you think. Which is why if you had a YouTube channel and you were sharing what you thought and I disagreed, I just clicked the fuck off. But that's called being an adult, you know? And you say, well, no, you want to tell other people. Not a fucking stranger, I don't. There's no utility in me. Like, y'all still buy into this superstition that you, as a fucking stranger, is going to say something to somebody in their comments that's going to be that point of revelation for them. Hey, grow up. All right. It reminds me of the Jimmy Carr joke, you know, when Jesus comes back from the made up, you know. All right. The Moorish Science Temple of America. All right. Now, this movement is ultimately where the Nation of Islam comes from. It was established in 1913 by Noble Drew Ali, born Timothy Drew in Newark, New Jersey. The movement predates the Nation of Islam and has influenced subsequent Black nationalist and religious groups. Now, the Moorish Science Temple of America has shrunk significantly, but it has several bastard offshoots, which is how the Moorish ideology still stays in place. But Noble Drew Ali is not mentioned as much as he should be, because he does, you know, he is in a sense kind of the progenitor of this atheistic Islamic ideology. Okay, he's kind of like the progenitor for that in the U.S. You know, and there may have been somebody before him. I don't know, but he's the earliest that I know of. But I know who he got it from. I love history. I really do. Noble Drew Ali was a Garveyite. Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey did the same thing with Christianity. He created for the most part, an atheistic version of Christianity that actually became responsible. Well, I can't say it became responsible. I'm not going to do that. That would be irresponsible of me. But it had a lot to do. Oh man, there was a denomination that came out of that, which his goal wasn't to start a denomination. Marcus Garvey's wasn't. It was to start a revolutionary movement. And just like the Nation of Islam, which this is where they're pulling this from, he realized that Christianity was the language of Africans in America, and pretty much Africans everywhere that he had been, which Marcus was from Jamaica. And so he used the language of Christianity to create this movement that was called the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA. But he was fiercely averse to making it the organization itself religious centered. So he wanted he used religious language, but didn't want the organization to be religious centered. Now, a few great things happened because of that. His organization grew like wildfire. There has not to this day been an organization that is focused on Black issues that grew as large as Garvey's did in the 1913s, 15s, 16s, 17s, 18s, 19s, and 20s. There hasn't been a movement like it since, you know, other than churches. But so that's where that's pulling from. Noble Drew Ali basically takes the same things that Garvey is doing around the time that Garvey is coming into a lot of legal issues, which was a bunch of bullshit. But that could be another conversation. Yeah, so he takes a lot of that stuff that Garvey's doing and forms that as the Moorish Science Temple of America. But he does make it a little bit, he adds a little more religious syncretism into it by blending Islam, Christianity, Freemasonry, and Eastern philosophies, and teaches that Americans, African Americans, much like the Hebrew Israelites, are of Moorish ancestry and should identify as Moorish Americans. Now, what you really begin to learn about the offshoots of these groups is that none of them actually know how law and nationality works. So they think that if you just claim a nationality, whether it's something you made up or something that existed, then you have a nationality. And that's typically the argument of most of these groups, that Black is not a nationality. But that's a false argument, because no one has ever said that Black is a nationality. Black folk are African Americans. American is the nationality, But the argument is typically that you're not really American because you call yourself Black. And it's literally what the Moors say. Because you call yourself Black, you're calling yourself dead, and America has no obligation to recognize you. Oh, if only my ancestors knew that. Oh, man, all y'all had to do was say that you were Moorish and you wouldn't have been enslaved. How fucking childish are you? Seriously, anybody who's a part of this bullshit, grow the fuck up. Yikes. So they have their own version of the Quran. It's not the Islamic Quran. It's the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. And they emphasize the importance of nationality and legal status, which is, again, very interesting. But I want to keep this right along because they're not the only ones, There's also the Nuwaubians who are also kind of Moorish and Islamic. But I'll tell you, they were founded by Dwight York, who end up being known as Malachi Z. York, which I was highly interested in this character. I guess it was 2015 and 16. I did a lot of research into Malachi for a lot of reasons, which you'll see here. They started this group initially in Brooklyn, New York, and it ended up being in Georgia. The group has changed its name several times and doctrine over the years. They incorporate aspects of ancient Egyptian religion, African traditions, UFO conspiracy theories, and various esoteric teachings. This is why I did that video when I did my video on Terrence Howard. It's groups like this that bothers me. This is the reason why stuff bothers me like that. Why I got to speak out on it. And there's a very popular YouTube movement of Black people who are regurgitating the same bullshit as Revelation, and Ben Carson is one of those people, But I was attracted to the Nuwaubians because of their affinity for ancient Egyptian religion. I thought that was pretty neat. I'm not gonna lie. And in Georgia, they had built this place called Tamaray, where they actually had pyramids built out there. I don't know what they were made of. They might have been made of haystacks or something. I don't know. No, that sounds condescending. They weren't haystacks, but they looked neat. And people in Georgia could come and ride through them. And I want to say, was that in Eaton, Georgia? Okay, but anyway. They teach that Black people are descendants of extraterrestrial beings called the Anunnaki. If that shit ain't racist, I am so tired of the Anunnaki bullshit. Yikes. They have a special, and they feel that Black people have a special connection to advanced civilization. Well, let's advance some damn civilization then, because all of the groups who believe this shit live in the most unadvanced ways possible. Stop this shit, man. And they like the Moors. They blend Christianity, Judaism, and Islam and other belief systems, and they hold apocalyptic beliefs. Yep, it was in Eatonton, Georgia. I thought so. So they have a compound in called Tamaray. I don't know if it's still there. As a matter of fact, I think I remember that being deconstructed. And then York is, as far as I know, I think he's still in prison. Because he ended up being indicted on charges of racketeering and child molestation. That's how that went down. Now, I'm going to make a little segue here to talk about Wesley Snipes. Because across from their Tamaray compound, Wesley Snipes had recently purchased property. I told you, I went to a deep dive on this. Now, this is all old information. Of course, many of you know Wesley Snipes is a well-known actor and film producer. during the 1990s, he was actually connected with this group. His involvement was primarily centered around business interests and land development near their compound. Now, I do have some insight on the business interest, and that is he was training their security forces, or he was not him personally, but his group was training their security forces. So in the late 1990s, Wesley Snipes purchased approximately 200 acres of land in Georgia near the Nuwaubian Nation's Tama Ray compound. The intended purpose of the land was to build a film studio and a headquarters for his company, Amun Ra Films. Now, most people did not know that Wesley Snipes was a Pan-Africanist, and he was. Amun Ra Films is the film that was responsible for immortalizing Dr. John Henry Clark in a documentary form. That was Wesley Snipes who did that. So kudos, Wesley. Thank you for that, because Dr. Clark is, like, again, that's one of my heroes. Funny as fuck. One of my heroes. Yeah, I choose Dr. Clark over Dick Gregory any day. Dr. Clark was my dude. All right, so let's continue. Snipes' proximity to Tama Ray and interactions with Dr. York did lead to speculation about his involvement with the Nuwaubian Nation. Reports suggest that Snipes may have attended some of the events or had dialogues with York, but concrete details about the depths of his association are limited. And that's primarily because Wesley did have a very private life at this time, primarily because a lot of the things that he was working with. But Amun Ra Films, that is worth research. You will find his connection with the Blade trilogy. But there is no evidence that Snipes was involved in or had any knowledge of the illegal activities that led to Dwight York's conviction in 2002, when the FBI raided Tama Ray and arrested York's. Snipes' land and activities were not implicated in the investigation. All right, so now you're wondering, like, well, if in 2002, when they got raided, Snipes wasn't on the radar, why are you bringing him in this conversation? Because in 2006, Wesley Snipes was indicted on multiple counts, including felony charges, conspiracy to defraud the United States and making a false claim for payment, and misdemeanor charges. Willful failure to file federal income tax returns from 1999 to 2004. Now, this isn't news. Most of us knew that Wesley Snipes went to prison for tax evasion. What we don't know, or what most people don't know, is what the reasons for the tax evasion was. Actually, this part I didn't even know until recently. And I can't even remember what triggered it. But I was having a conversation somewhere and somebody said something, and I was like, what? And then it led to this rabbit hole. So the arguments that Wesley used was that he was a non-resident alien and not subject to U.S. income tax laws, despite being a U.S. citizen born in Florida. These are the arguments that typically Nuwaubians and Moors make. He argued that the IRS lacked the legal authority to collect taxes from him. Now, here's the thing about this, and this is why I say these groups don't know. They don't know how law works, right? If you're going to say that a federal agency doesn't have the legal authority to collect taxes from you, you need to have the legal possibility to protect yourself, motherfucker, or be prepared to go to war, which again means be prepared to protect yourself. And that to me, that's the most disingenuousness about the Moors and the Nuwaubians, and even the Hebrew Israelites. They don't do that much on that part. But that's definitely because they keep setting people up for failure. And in this case, a highly successful actor gets caught up into this line of bullshit thinking. And I'm not saying that the IRS does have the authority. I'm saying, what the fuck can you do about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get to say, I found this magic paper that says you don't, that I no longer have to pay you taxes, and that shit just works. If it did, we'd all have magical fucking papers. Like, no, shit doesn't work that way. No. People are in control by force, bruh. And so if you're going to resist that control, you need to, at the very least, unless we're in a different society, have your force ready. All right. I got to keep rolling. So, and he submitted returns declaring zero income and requesting refunds for taxes previously paid. He used frivolous legal arguments. His defense mirrored typical sovereign citizen tactics, such as challenging the jurisdiction of the court and the validity of tax laws. He collaborated with Eddie Ray Khan, a known advocate of sovereign citizen and tax protester theories, who is also the founder of the American Rights Litigators and Guiding Light of God Ministries. I think that should have been the red flag. But he failed to file tax returns, and pay taxes based on the belief that he was not legally required to do so. The court dismissed his sovereign citizen-style defense as frivolous and without merit, and judges cautioned against the use of such invalid arguments, emphasizing adherence to established law. I pulled this case study into this conversation primarily because one of the most dishonest things that these groups do, the Moorish groups and the Nuwaubian groups, is they lie to people and they tell people, oh no, because they have whole legal systems that they've created where they certify people as lawyers, and they sell this idea that if you become a Moorish lawyer, then you can go into any American court and win and defend and all this stuff. And that's never how it goes. But just like Christians, their superstitious nature never allows them to pay attention to when what they're saying is demonstrably false, you know? All right, so other similar groups are the Rastafari movement. I don't talk about them as much because I kind of like them. I have one issue with the Rastafari. I mean, other than the superstition, right? But they emerged in the 1930s in Jamaica, influenced by the coronation of Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia. Yes, Rastafari. They believed in his divinity. They considered him the returned Messiah, or a representation of God, Jah, on earth. Emphasized returning to Africa, Zion, as a spiritual homeland, and advocate for a natural lifestyle, including dietary laws, dreadlocks, and the sacramental use of cannabis, which is one of my favorite parts of the Rastafari. But it's also what actually pisses me the fuck off about the Rastafaris. Okay, are y'all ready, Rastafari? Rastafari brothers, are you ready? I'm pissed the fuck off at you because you had the legal protection to use marijuana and offer that as a safeguard to black folk. But because of your childish aversity to organization, you choose not to do what is in your own best interest. And so you still get arrested like the rest of us. Dude, if it's your religious right, organize around that shit and protect yourself. What the fuck? Yeah, so that's my big flaw with the Rastafarians. Other than all of the superstition, you know. But obviously the music is incredible, man. Like, what the fuck? Like, out of all the religions, if Rastafarianism was the only religion left, I'd be okay. Well, there's some other things in Rastafarianism that are not that great. But that's because they stem from Christianity there, though, you know. But obviously, Rastafarianism addresses issues like colonialism, racism, and inequality. And then I'm going to hit this last one because this is actually, I said Nation of Islam would have got me. If this one would have caught me earlier, I likely would have stayed a Christian longer. If this one would have caught me earlier, because even as an atheist, I was this. Like my first 5 years as an atheist, I was a black liberation theologian. You know, this originated in the 1960s during the civil rights movements. One of my favorite authors wrote several books about black liberation theology, and that's James Cone, Reverend James Cone, Dr. James Cone, but interprets Christian theology through the experience of African Americans, which that is something that I've become really good at because that's much of what the black church experience was. emphasizes God's preference for the oppressed and the need for social justice, which that like if that would have caught me earlier, that would have made it harder for me to deconvert, because I was already deconstructing by the time I came into contact with Black liberation theology. I adored the idea, and that's why I held on to it even as an atheist. I adored the idea that God has a preference for the oppressed, and God has a need for social justice. However, outside of flowery remaking of scripture, that's not what's represented in the Bible. God is an oppressor. Hello. And advocacy. They highly involved in civil rights, anti-racism efforts, and community development. The few Black churches that I do have respect for are the ones that are typically kind of highly correlated with Black liberation theology. So these groups represent a range of movements that have emerged to address spiritual, cultural, and socio-political needs of Black people. While some have contributed positively to community upliftment, others have faced criticism for promoting divisive or extremist ideologies. Understanding the beliefs and activities of these groups is essential for a nuanced perspective on their impact within society. So I hope you've learned something today about some of the fringe groups that exist within the world of Black belief and Black non-belief. And I think that's all I have for now, because I actually do have to go. I have a meeting in about 2 minutes. So I'm gonna holler at y'all later. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining, supporting, or connecting with this content community or channel in any way that makes sense for you. And then, of course, check out our merch and our books, because we have some of the dopest stuff out there. And I just finished a new book. All right, that's all I have. Man, y'all have a wonderful day. Keep rising, stay progressive, and stay beautiful if you can. I'll holler.
I was living my life in the servitude of misunderstandings of people I loved. Giving it all, it was never enough. Because of the fall, I could never get up. I moved on from their misunderstandings. I am no longer standing.